Have you ever wondered what it would be like to live inside the greatest empire the world had ever seen? An empire so powerful that its armies marched across 3 continents. An empire whose roads connected millions of people. An empire whose laws still influence governments today. An empire whose rise changed history forever, and whose fall shocked the world. This is the story of Rome. A story of ambition. A story of war. A story of genius leaders and ruthless tyrants. A story of glory, betrayal, conquest, and collapse. For over 1,000 years, Rome dominated the ancient world. Its armies defeated kingdoms. Its engineers built wonders. Its emperors commanded unimaginable wealth and power. But behind the magnificent temples, massive arenas, and triumphant victories was a constant struggle for survival. Every emperor feared assassination. Every general dreamed of power. Every enemy waited for Rome to weaken. And in the end, even the mightiest empire could not escape its fate. This is the complete story of the Roman Empire. From a tiny settlement on the banks of the Tiber River, to the most powerful civilization in human history, and finally, to its dramatic fall. Our story begins nearly 3,000 years ago, long before Rome became an empire, long before emperors ruled, long before the world feared Roman legions. According to legend, Rome was founded in 753 BC by 2 twin brothers, Romulus and Remus. The story says they were abandoned as babies and left to die. But fate had other plans. A she-wolf discovered them and nursed them until they were rescued and raised by a shepherd. As they grew older, the brothers decided to establish a city. But a bitter dispute broke out between them. Romulus killed Remus. Then he founded a city and named it after himself. Rome. Whether the story is true or not remains uncertain. But one thing is clear. The city that emerged on the hills beside the Tiber River would eventually transform the world. In its early years, Rome was small, surrounded by stronger neighbors, threatened by rival tribes, and constantly fighting for survival. The Romans were not born into greatness. They earned it through discipline, hard work, and an extraordinary ability to learn from their enemies. During this period, Rome was ruled by kings. Some were respected, others were hated. The final king, Lucius Tarquinius Superbus, became notorious for tyranny and abuse of power. The Roman people grew tired of royal rule. In 509 BC, they rebelled. The king was overthrown, and Rome entered a new era, the Roman Republic. This was one of the most important moments in world history. Instead of a king, Rome would be governed by elected officials. Power would be shared, at least in theory. The Republic was led by senators, powerful aristocrats who represented Rome's elite families. Every year, 2 consuls were elected to govern the state. The idea was simple. No single man should ever hold absolute power. The Romans believed that kingship led to tyranny. Ironically, centuries later, they would embrace emperors. But for now, the Republic was born, and it was hungry for expansion. Over the next centuries, Rome fought countless wars, conquered neighboring tribes, absorbed rival cities, and gradually expanded across the Italian peninsula. What made Rome different from many ancient powers was its flexibility. Instead of simply destroying defeated enemies, Rome often offered them citizenship, alliances, and opportunities. This created loyalty, and it helped Rome grow stronger after every victory. As Rome expanded, its military became its greatest weapon. The Roman legion was unlike anything the ancient world had seen. Every soldier trained relentlessly. Every unit moved with precision. Every commander understood discipline. A Roman legionnaire carried heavy equipment, marched incredible distances, and fought with deadly efficiency. They built roads, constructed camps, and adapted to changing battle conditions. The Roman army became the engine of Roman expansion. Soon, Rome faced its greatest challenge yet. A powerful rival across the Mediterranean Sea, Carthage. Located in North Africa, Carthage was wealthy, influential, and dominant in trade. Conflict between Rome and Carthage became inevitable. This struggle became known as the Punic Wars. and it would produce one of history's most legendary commanders. Hannibal. When Hannibal was still a child, he reportedly swore eternal hatred toward Rome. Years later, he would make good on that promise. In 218 BC, Hannibal launched one of the most daring military campaigns ever attempted. Instead of attacking Rome by sea, he marched an army over the Alps. With elephants, thousands of soldiers crossed mountains, snow, and deadly terrain. Many died, but those who survived shocked the Romans. Hannibal invaded Italy, and victory after victory followed. At battles such as Trebia, Lake Trasimene, and Cannae, Roman armies suffered devastating defeats. At Cannae alone, tens of thousands of Roman soldiers were killed. It was one of the worst military disasters in Roman history. Many believed Rome was finished, but Rome refused to surrender. The Republic raised new armies. Again and again, no matter how many soldiers were lost, no matter how many defeats they suffered, the Romans continued fighting. Eventually, a brilliant Roman commander emerged, Scipio Africanus. Instead of chasing Hannibal endlessly through Italy, Scipio attacked Carthage itself. The strategy worked. Hannibal was forced to return home. In 202 BC, the two great commanders finally met at the Battle of Zama. Scipio defeated Hannibal. Rome won. Carthage lost its dominance, and Rome became the leading power of the Mediterranean world. The victory transformed Rome forever. New territories brought wealth. New wealth brought power, and new power brought corruption. As Rome grew richer, the gap between the rich and poor widened dramatically. Powerful aristocrats accumulated enormous fortunes. Ordinary citizens struggled. Political tensions increased. Violence entered Roman politics. The republic that once prided itself on balance and cooperation began to crack. Several ambitious leaders attempted reforms. Some wanted to help the poor. Others wanted more power. Many met violent ends. The republic was becoming unstable. And soon, one man would rise above them all. A military genius. A brilliant politician. A man whose name would become synonymous with power itself. Julius Caesar. Born into a noble but not particularly wealthy family, Caesar possessed extraordinary ambition. He was charismatic, intelligent, and determined to leave his mark on history. Through military success and political alliances, Caesar gained influence throughout Rome. Then came his greatest military campaign, the conquest of Gaul, modern-day France and surrounding regions. For years, Caesar led campaigns that expanded Roman territory and enriched both himself and Rome. His victories made him incredibly popular, but they also made the Senate nervous. Many senators feared Caesar was becoming too powerful. They worried he might destroy the Republic. In 49 BC, tensions reached a breaking point. The Senate ordered Caesar to surrender his command. Instead, he made a decision that changed history. Standing beside a small river called the Rubicon, Caesar led his army across. Crossing the Rubicon was an act of rebellion. It meant civil war. Caesar reportedly declared, "The die is cast." Rome plunged into conflict. Caesar emerged victorious. His rivals were defeated. His enemies fled or died. And eventually, Caesar became dictator. For many Romans, he was a hero. For others, he was a threat. The Republic's defenders feared he intended to become king, a title Romans despised. On March 15, 44 BC, the Ides of March, a group of senators carried out a conspiracy. As Caesar entered the Senate chamber, they surrounded him. Then they attacked, stabbing him repeatedly. One of the conspirators was his trusted associate, Brutus. According to legend, Caesar's final words were, "You too, Brutus?" Julius Caesar was dead, but the Republic was not saved. Instead, his assassination triggered another civil war. And from that chaos would emerge the first Roman emperor. The death of Julius Caesar did not restore peace. Instead, it pushed Rome deeper into chaos. The men who assassinated Caesar believed they had saved the Republic. But they had badly underestimated the consequences of their actions. The Roman people were furious. Many had admired Caesar. Many had benefited from his reforms, and many saw the assassins not as heroes, but as murderers. As Rome struggled to recover from the shock, a young man stepped forward. He was only 18 years old, quiet, reserved, and often underestimated. His name was Octavian. Few people imagined that this young man would become one of the most powerful rulers in history. But Octavian possessed something rare: patience. He understood that power was not always won by the strongest sword. Sometimes it was won by waiting, by calculating, by letting others make mistakes. Julius Caesar had adopted Octavian as his heir. That single decision changed history. Suddenly, Octavian inherited Caesar's name, fortune, and political influence. Yet he was not alone. Another powerful figure claimed Caesar's legacy: a talented general named Mark Antony. Antony had fought beside Caesar. He was experienced, popular with soldiers, and believed he deserved to lead Rome. Conflict between Octavian and Antony seemed inevitable. For a brief period, however, they joined forces. Together with a politician named Lepidus, they formed the Second Triumvirate. Their goal was simple: destroy Caesar's enemies. The triumvirs hunted down the conspirators responsible for Caesar's assassination. Many were executed. Others committed suicide rather than face capture. Among them was Brutus, one of Caesar's former friends. The Republic's last defenders were gone. But peace still did not come, because ambitious men rarely remain allies forever. Soon, tensions emerged between Octavian and Mark Antony. The conflict intensified when Antony formed a relationship with one of history's most famous queens, Cleopatra, the ruler of Egypt. Cleopatra was intelligent, charismatic, and politically brilliant. She had previously allied herself with Julius Caesar. Now she stood beside Mark Antony. Together they became one of the most powerful couples in the ancient world. To Octavian, this presented a perfect opportunity. He launched a propaganda campaign against Antony. He claimed Antony had become loyal to Egypt instead of Rome. He accused him of betraying Roman values. Whether the accusations were entirely true hardly mattered. Public opinion began turning against Antony. The final confrontation arrived in 31 BC, at the Battle of Actium, one of the most important naval battles in history. Octavian's fleet faced the combined forces of Antony and Cleopatra. The battle ended in disaster for Antony. Defeat was unavoidable. Antony and Cleopatra fled to Egypt, but Octavian followed. Knowing their cause was lost, both Antony and Cleopatra took their own lives. Egypt became part of Rome. Octavian stood alone. There were no rivals left, no generals powerful enough to challenge him, no politicians capable of opposing him. The Roman Republic was effectively finished. Although Octavian carefully avoided calling himself king, everyone understood the truth. Rome now had a single ruler. In 27 BC, the Senate granted him a new title, Augustus, meaning the revered one. The Roman Empire had begun. Augustus understood a lesson many rulers failed to learn. People wanted stability. After decades of civil war, Romans were exhausted. They wanted peace. They wanted prosperity. And Augustus delivered both. Under his rule, Rome entered a period known as the Pax Romana, the Roman peace. For nearly 2 centuries, the empire experienced remarkable stability. Trade flourished. Cities expanded. Roads connected distant provinces. Merchants traveled safely across vast territories. The Mediterranean effectively became a Roman lake. Everywhere people saw signs of Roman power. Magnificent temples, massive aqueducts, stone roads stretching beyond the horizon, bridges, markets, bathhouses, amphitheaters. Roman engineers became legendary. Many of their structures remain standing today. The roads were especially important. Roman engineers built over 250,000 miles of roads. These roads allowed armies to move quickly, goods to travel efficiently, and information to spread throughout the empire. A famous saying emerged: all roads lead to Rome. For millions of people, Rome became the center of the world. At its height, The city itself may have housed over 1 million residents. An astonishing number for the ancient world. The city was crowded, noisy, busy, and alive with activity. Merchants sold exotic goods from distant lands. Politicians debated in public forums. Priests conducted ceremonies. Soldiers marched through the streets. And ordinary citizens gathered to watch public entertainment. Entertainment became a major part of Roman life. Nothing symbolized Roman entertainment more than gladiatorial combat. The gladiators were celebrities. Some were prisoners. Others were slaves. A few were volunteers seeking fame and fortune. Inside massive arenas, gladiators fought before enormous crowds. The most famous arena of all was the Colosseum. Completed in AD 80, it could hold tens of thousands of spectators. The structure was an engineering marvel. People gathered from every corner of Rome to watch contests, gladiator battles, animal hunts, public executions, and elaborate spectacles. For the crowd, it was unforgettable entertainment. For the empire, it reinforced Roman power. The message was clear. Rome controlled life and death. Yet beneath the grandeur, challenges remained. The empire was enormous. Its borders stretched across Europe, North Africa, and the Middle East. Managing such a vast territory required exceptional leadership. Some emperors succeeded. Others failed spectacularly. One emperor became infamous for his cruelty and extravagance. His name was Nero.
Nero became imperatore in AD 54.
Initially, many hoped he would be a capable ruler. But over time, his behavior grew increasingly erratic. Stories spread of his obsession with luxury, his desire for praise, and his ruthless treatment of opponents. Then disaster struck. In AD 64, a massive fire devastated Rome. For days, flames consumed large sections of the city. Thousands lost their homes. Many lost their lives. Rumors quickly spread. Some accused Nero himself of causing the fire. Historians still debate the truth. What is certain is that Nero became a symbol of imperial excess. His reign ended in rebellion. Abandoned by supporters and facing arrest, Nero committed suicide. His final reported words captured his vanity. "What an artist dies in me."
Rome survived Nero.
But the empire would continue experiencing both brilliant rulers and disastrous ones. The future of Rome often depended on the character of a single emperor. And some emperors would elevate Rome to heights never before imagined. Among them stood one of the greatest conquerors in Roman history, Trajan. Under Trajan's leadership, the Roman Empire reached its maximum territorial size. Roman armies expanded into new regions. Victories brought wealth, resources, and prestige. At its greatest extent, Rome controlled nearly 5 million square kilometers of territory. More than 60 million people lived under Roman rule. No empire in the Western world had ever been larger. Yet conquest alone did not define Rome's greatness. Its influence extended far beyond military power. Roman law shaped legal systems. Roman architecture inspired future civilizations. Roman language evolved into modern languages such as Spanish, French, Italian, Portuguese, and Romanian. Even today, traces of Rome appear throughout the modern world. Its legacy became immortal. But every empire faces a question. What happens when expansion ends? What happens when there are no more lands to conquer? Rome was about to find out. For generations, Rome had grown stronger through conquest. Every victory brought new land, new wealth, new resources, and new prestige. But by the 2nd century AD, expansion was beginning to slow. The empire had reached a size that was becoming increasingly difficult to manage. Its borders stretched thousands of miles. Enemies pressed against every frontier, and maintaining control required enormous resources. At this critical moment, Rome was fortunate to have one of its greatest rulers, a philosopher, a military commander, and an emperor who believed power came with responsibility. His name was Marcus Aurelius. When Marcus Aurelius became emperor in AD 161, Rome remained powerful. Yet trouble was already gathering beyond its borders. Germanic tribes threatened the northern frontier. Conflicts erupted in the east, and a deadly plague spread throughout the empire. The disease killed millions. Cities lost population. The army weakened. Economic activity declined. For many Romans, it felt as if the gods themselves had turned against them. Despite these challenges, Marcus Aurelius remained committed to duty. Unlike emperors who spent their time indulging in luxury, he often lived alongside his soldiers. He led campaigns personally, endured hardship, and worked tirelessly to protect the empire. During quiet moments, he wrote reflections about life, responsibility, and self-discipline. These writings would later become famous as Meditations. Nearly 2,000 years later, people still read his words. Many historians consider Marcus Aurelius one of the finest leaders Rome ever produced. Yet even great rulers cannot control the future. When Marcus Aurelius died in AD 180, power passed to his son, Commodus. The contrast could not have been greater. Where Marcus Aurelius valued duty, Commodus valued attention. Where Marcus Aurelius respected responsibility, Commodus pursued personal glory. Commodus became obsessed with his own image. He often appeared in gladiator contests, presented himself as a living god, and demanded admiration from everyone around him. The Roman people watched with growing concern. The emperor seemed more interested in entertainment than governing. Corruption increased. Political instability returned. Eventually, Commodus was assassinated. His death marked the end of a remarkable era. The period known as the Five Good Emperors was over. A darker chapter was beginning. Over the next century, Rome entered a period historians call the crisis of the 3rd century. The empire nearly collapsed. Emperors rose and fell with shocking speed. Many ruled for only a few years. Some lasted only months. Others never had a chance to establish authority before being overthrown. Civil wars erupted repeatedly. Generals fought each other for control. The army increasingly decided who became emperor, and soldiers often switched loyalty whenever a better opportunity appeared. At the same time, foreign enemies sensed weakness. Germanic tribes launched invasions across northern borders. Persian forces threatened Roman territories in the east. The empire faced attacks from multiple directions. Economic problems made everything worse. Inflation spiraled out of control. Trade declined. Tax burdens increased. People lost confidence in the government. Entire regions broke away and formed their own states. For a time, it seemed entirely possible that Rome would disappear. But then came a series of remarkable leaders determined to save the empire. One of them was Emperor Aurelian. Aurelian inherited a fractured empire. Large territories had broken away. Enemies threatened every border. Yet through military brilliance and relentless determination, he restored Roman control. Province after province returned to imperial authority. The empire was reunited. Grateful citizens gave him a title, Restorer of the World. Rome had survived, but the challenges facing the empire remained immense. Another reformer soon emerged. His name was Diocletian. Diocletian understood a simple truth. The empire had become too large for one person to govern effectively, so he introduced sweeping reforms. He reorganized the government, strengthened the military, and divided administrative responsibilities among multiple rulers. This system improved efficiency and temporarily stabilized the empire. Yet Diocletian's most significant contribution may have been preparing the way for a leader who would transform Rome forever. A man named Constantine. Constantine's rise to power was dramatic. Like many Roman leaders before him, he fought rivals in a struggle for control. But before one decisive battle, something extraordinary supposedly happened. According to tradition, Constantine saw a vision in the sky, a symbol associated with Christianity. Alongside it appeared a message. In this sign conquer. Constantine embraced the symbol. His forces won the battle, and his life changed forever. For centuries, Rome had worshipped many gods. Temples dedicated to various deities stood throughout the empire. But Christianity had been growing steadily. Despite periods of persecution, despite arrests, despite executions, Christian communities continued expanding. The message of faith, hope, and salvation attracted followers from every social class. Constantine's support transformed Christianity's future. In AD 313, he issued the Edict of Milan. Christians were granted religious freedom. The faith was no longer illegal. Instead of persecution, Christianity now enjoyed imperial protection. The consequences were enormous. A religion once practiced secretly became one of the world's dominant faiths. Constantine also founded a new capital city, a city strategically positioned between Europe and Asia. It was called Constantinople. Built on the site of ancient Byzantium, it quickly became one of the most important cities in the world. Magnificent churches rose beside grand palaces. Trade flourished. Wealth poured into the city. Over time, Constantinople would become the heart of the Eastern Roman Empire, and its survival would outlast Rome itself. As the 4th century progressed, another major change occurred. The Roman Empire became increasingly divided. The western regions centered around Rome. The eastern regions centered around Constantinople. At first, this arrangement seemed practical. The empire was simply too large to manage from one location. But gradually, the two halves developed different identities, different priorities, and different strengths. The eastern half grew wealthier and more stable. The western half faced mounting difficulties. The greatest threat came from beyond the borders. Across Europe, entire populations were on the move. Historians call this period the migration era. Powerful tribes searched for new lands. Among them were the Goths, the Vandals, the Franks, the Saxons, and many others. Some entered Roman territory peacefully. Others arrived as invaders. Then another force appeared from the east, a terrifying people known as the Huns, led by a fearsome warrior named Attila. The arrival of the Huns sent shockwaves throughout Europe. Entire tribes fled before them. Many sought refuge within Roman borders. This increased pressure on an already struggling empire. Rome attempted to manage the situation, sometimes successfully, often unsuccessfully. Tensions eventually exploded into violence. In AD 378, Roman forces faced the Goths at the Battle of Adrianople. The result was catastrophic. The Roman army suffered a devastating defeat. Even the emperor was killed. For many historians, Adrianople marked a turning point. The illusion of Roman invincibility had been shattered. The empire could still fight, still win battles, but it was no longer unstoppable. The challenges continued mounting. In AD 410, an event occurred that shocked the ancient world. For nearly 800 years, Rome itself had avoided capture by foreign enemies. That record finally ended. The Visigoths, led by Alaric, entered the city. Rome was sacked. The psychological impact was enormous. People across the empire struggled to comprehend what had happened. The Eternal City had fallen. Although the damage was not as extensive as later legends suggested, the symbolism was undeniable. Rome was vulnerable. The empire was weakening, and worse was yet to come. A few decades later, another group arrived. The Vandals. In AD 455, they entered Rome and carried away immense amounts of wealth. The city that once ruled the Mediterranean was now being looted by outsiders. Its glory was fading, its authority diminishing, its future uncertain. The Western Roman Empire staggered forward for several more decades. But by this point, emperors often served as little more than figureheads. Real power belonged to military commanders, provincial leaders, and foreign warlords. The machinery that had once governed millions was breaking apart. Finally, in AD 476, the end arrived. A Germanic leader named Odoacer removed the last Western Roman emperor from power. His name was Romulus Augustus. Ironically, he carried the names of Rome's legendary founder and its first emperor. Yet he was only a teenager, and his reign was largely symbolic. When Odoacer deposed him, there was no great final battle, no dramatic last stand, no single moment that captured the fall of Rome. Instead, the Western Roman Empire simply ceased to exist. An empire that had dominated the world for centuries was gone. Or was it? Because in the East, the Roman Empire survived. Its capital remained Constantinople. Its people still considered themselves Romans. Its emperors continued ruling. For nearly 1,000 more years, the story of Rome was not finished. Not yet. Most people believe the Roman Empire ended in AD 476. But that is only half the story. While the Western Roman Empire collapsed under the weight of invasions, political instability, and economic decline, the eastern half survived. And not just for a few years, not for a few decades, but for nearly 1,000 more years. Its capital was Constantinople. Its people called themselves Romans. Its rulers claimed to be the rightful heirs of Caesar and Augustus. Today, historians often call it the Byzantine Empire. But its citizens would have found that name strange. To them, there was only one empire. Rome. Protected by massive walls and enriched by international trade, Constantinople became the greatest city in the Christian world. Merchants arrived from Africa, Europe, the Middle East, and Asia. Ships crowded its harbors. Markets overflowed with exotic goods. Gold flowed through its economy. While much of Western Europe struggled through political fragmentation, Constantinople remained a center of wealth, learning, and culture. Yet survival required strong leadership, and one emperor stood above almost all others. His name was Justinian. When Justinian became emperor in AD 527, he dreamed of restoring Rome's former glory. He refused to accept that the Western territories were permanently lost. His ambition was enormous. And so was his determination. With the help of brilliant generals, Justinian launched military campaigns across the Mediterranean. Roman armies reconquered North Africa. They retook Italy. And they regained parts of Spain. For a brief moment, it seemed possible that the Roman Empire might be reunited. The dream of Augustus appeared alive once again. But Justinian's legacy extended far beyond military conquest. He also transformed Roman law. Legal experts gathered centuries of laws, rulings, and traditions into a single organized system. Known as the Corpus Juris Civilis, or the body of civil law, it became one of the most influential legal works in human history. Centuries later, legal systems across Europe would draw inspiration from Justinian's reforms. His influence continues to be felt even today. Then came disaster.
In AD 532, riozze rapted in Costantinople.
Known as the Nika riots, they threatened Justinian's rule. The city descended into chaos. Buildings burned. Violence spread. For a moment, Justinian considered fleeing. But one person changed his mind. His wife, Empress Theodora. Theodora was one of the most remarkable women in Roman history. She came from humble beginnings. Yet she became one of the most powerful figures in the empire. When others suggested escape, Theodora refused. According to historical accounts, she declared that royal purple made the finest burial shroud. In other words, she would rather die as an empress than live as a refugee. Her courage inspired Justinian. The rebellion was crushed, and the empire survived. After the riots, Justinian began constructing one of history's greatest architectural masterpieces, the Hagia Sophia. Its immense dome seemed to float above the earth. Visitors were left speechless. For nearly 1,000 years, it remained the largest cathedral in the world. The structure symbolized the wealth, faith, and ambition of the Roman Empire's eastern half. Yet even great achievements cannot stop time. Over the centuries, new enemies emerged. Arab armies expanded rapidly during the 7th century. They conquered vast territories that had once belonged to Rome. Egypt was lost. Syria was lost. Large portions of the empire disappeared forever. Despite these setbacks, Constantinople endured. Its mighty walls protected the city from countless attacks. Again and again, invaders arrived. Again and again, they failed. For centuries, the city stood as an almost impregnable fortress. Meanwhile, Western Europe was changing. New kingdoms rose from the ruins of the old Roman world. The Franks, the Anglo-Saxons, the Visigoths, and many other. Although Rome's political power had faded in the West, its cultural influence remained strong. Roman law survived. Roman architecture survived. Roman engineering survived. And Christianity, once a small persecuted faith within the empire, continued spreading across continents. The Roman legacy was everywhere. Even people who no longer lived under Roman rule continued benefiting from Roman ideas. As the centuries passed, relations between Eastern and Western Christianity grew increasingly strained. Disagreements over authority, theology, and tradition intensified. In 1054, the Great Schism formally divided Christianity into two major branches: the Roman Catholic Church in the West and the Eastern Orthodox Church in the East. It was another sign that the Roman world had changed forever. Then came beginning in the late 11th century, European armies marched eastward in a series of religious wars. Initially, some crusaders cooperated with Constantinople, but trust between East and West was fragile, and eventually that trust shattered. In 1204, an astonishing event occurred. Instead of attacking Muslim territories, crusaders turned against Constantinople itself. The city was captured, looted, and devastated. The destruction shocked the Christian world. The empire survived, but it never fully recovered. Its wealth diminished, its territory shrank, and its power continued fading. For the next 2 centuries, the once great empire struggled to survive. New threats surrounded it. Among the most dangerous was a rising power from Anatolia, the Ottoman Turks. The Ottomans expanded steadily. City after city fell under their control. By the 15th century, Constantinople stood almost alone, a magnificent city surrounded by enemies. The final chapter was approaching. In 1453, Sultan Mehmed II launched a massive campaign against Constantinople. His army numbered tens of thousands. Powerful cannons accompanied the invasion. The ancient walls that had protected the city for centuries now faced weapons unlike anything they had encountered before. Inside the city, defenders prepared for the inevitable siege. They knew the odds. They understood the danger. Yet they chose to fight. For weeks, Ottoman forces bombarded the walls. Day after day, night after night, the defenders resisted with extraordinary courage. But eventually breaches appeared. The walls began to fail. On May 29, 1453, the final assault began. Ottoman soldiers poured into the city. The defenders fought desperately. Among them was the last Roman emperor, Constantine XI. Refusing to abandon his people, he entered the battle personally. According to tradition, he removed the symbols of his rank and fought as an ordinary soldier. He was never seen again. With his death, the Roman Empire finally came to an end. The empire founded nearly 2,000 years earlier was gone. The city of Constantine had fallen. The last emperor was dead. And the age of Rome was over. Or was it? Because empires are not remembered only for how they end. They are remembered for what they leave behind. And Rome left behind more than almost any civilization in history. Look around the modern world. The influence of Rome is everywhere. Many legal systems trace their origins to Roman law. Many government institutions reflect Roman ideas. The architecture of capitol buildings, courthouses, and monuments often echoes Roman design. The calendar we use today was shaped by Roman reforms. Languages spoken by hundreds of millions of people evolved from Latin. Roads, engineering, military organization, political concepts, even the idea of citizenship. Rome helped shape them all. Its influence reaches across centuries, across continents, across cultures. The Roman Empire was not perfect. Far from it. Its history includes conquest, slavery, violence, and political corruption. Yet it also produced extraordinary achievements. Brilliant engineering, innovative law, enduring literature, and ideas that transformed civilization. For more than 2,000 years, people have studied Rome.
Admire de Rome. Débattez de Rome.
And learned from Rome. Because the story of Rome is more than the story of an empire. It is the story of human ambition. The desire to build something greater than ourselves. The struggle between power and responsibility. the constant battle between order and chaos. Rome rose from a small settlement beside a river. It became the center of the known world. Survived wars, plagues, assassinations, civil conflicts, and invasions. It ruled millions, inspired generations, and changed history forever. Empires have risen, empires have fallen, nations have appeared and disappeared. But Rome remains, not on maps, not as a political power, but in laws, languages, cities, ideas, and in the imagination of humanity. Because long after its legions vanished, long after its emperors turned to dust, long after its banners disappeared from the battlefield, the legacy of Rome continued, and in many ways, still does today. This was the story of the Roman Empire, the rise, the glory, the struggles, and the fall, one of the greatest civilizations the world has ever known. And so, the story of Rome finally comes to an end. A civilization that began as a small settlement on the banks of the Tiber River grew into an empire that changed the course of human history. Its armies conquered continents. Its laws shaped nations. Its ideas influenced generations. And even after its fall, its legacy continued to echo through the centuries. If you enjoyed this journey through one of history's greatest empires, make sure to subscribe to the channel and join us for more incredible stories from the past. Here on Socopedia, we bring history to life through epic documentaries, forgotten stories, legendary leaders, and the events that shaped our world. Leave a comment below and tell us which civilization, empire, or historical figure you'd like to see next. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss an adventure into history. Thank you for watching, and until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep discovering the stories that changed the world. This is Socopedia,